Sublime magnificence. Hey guys, you know who it is, what's going on, when it's happening, where it's at, and why we're here today. How you doing? It is I, the sublimely magnificent Big Ugly himself, Omari Ellis Feo Grande on YouTube, and we are back with another episode of This Guy Hasn't Seen. And as usual, I am joined by my co-host, my running mate, one of my best friends in the world, El Director himself, Bill Smith.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me back. Omari, thank you for having me back. It's always good to be here. And boy, did I bring a doozy today. I think my first core memory is Superman versus Clark Kent in a landfill. In a junkyard.
Fair enough.
I think it's my first real tangible memory.
I was definitely going to talk about that.
Is that scene. So this is a very important movie to me, Omari, and you can't talk bad about it.
Okay.
We're watching Superman 3 this week from 1983. Of course, it is starring Christopher Reeves.
The legend.
And Richard Pryor.
The legend.
This is going to immediately skyrocket to number one with a bullet as the worst IMDb synopsis I have read.
Oh.
And it goes: synthetic kryptonite laced with tar splits Superman in two, good Clark Kent and bad Man of Steel. End of synopsis. That's about 20% of this movie.
I'm about to say that is a very brief conflict. Like,
in a nutshell, I've kind of already explained. Like, there was an age of 4 to 8,
all right,
where I was a Superman kid. I had a hairbrush, a toothbrush, pajamas, sleep set, action figure, toys, costumes. I had a side part. I tried to do the little swirl. I started collecting comic books. I was all about Superman, and the first 3 Superman Christopher Reeves movies in particular were everything to me. And weirdly enough, this film was the most important one of them. And so that's why I recommended this, because, you know, it has to be seen. Especially if you're someone who's into comic books, who's into superhero movies, who's into the new modern age of what we know as a superhero movie. Don't fucking come to me and talk to me about Henry Cavill's Superman being bad. Oh man, why can't we just go back to Christopher Reeve's Superman? People don't acknowledge the fact that half of Christopher Reeve's Superman movies were the worst pieces of shit in the world. But that's my quick little rant on it. So why this movie had to be a part of our canon. What were you anticipating? You've seen 1 and 2, right?
I've seen 1 and 2. Superman. I joke around and say I've always had a love-hate relationship with Superman. Like, I never followed DC Comics that close. We talk on other episodes about the fact that I know a lot about X-Men and by proxy a lot of Marvel stuff. DC, I'm like damn near the opposite. I know Batman and Superman stuff from Batman and Superman Adventures on the WB and random stuff since, but that's about the extent of who I know from the Superman universe. I saw the Christopher Reeves movies over the years, but for the most part, I always, like I said, had a love-hate relationship with Superman, and both were for the same reason. Because he's Superman. Because you can watch something, he does what he does, and you're like, God damn it, who cares? It's Superman. He wins all the time. There ain't no tension here, so and so. But at the same time, different scenario, different, people in the situation. Some motherfucker does some shit to Superman, and you're like, are you fucking kidding me? Because that's Superman. You can't mess with Superman. Superman's about to embody, and Superman. So that's always how I've been. Somehow, Superman plus Richard Pryor, someone else who I've just always, very goated black comedian, Richard Pryor, comic legend. But kind of like we mentioned with the Steve Martin thing last video, while I've enjoyed a lot of Richard Pryor stuff, it's never been something like, oh, I know this man's whole catalog or whatever. I'm
right.
kind of uneducated on Richard Pryor and his thing. So, but when I heard he was in this movie and I was about to watch it, I knew one of the movies had a cellophane S. I had assumed. I wasn't sure if it was going to be this one. It wasn't. But I was expecting Superman stuff, including the and with Richard Pryor involved, it should be funny at least.
Yeah.
And so we turned the movie on and get the initial reactions. You get that time capsule to early 80s.
I mean, we could do an entire episode on just this credit sequence.
The fucking
just the opening credits of this movie. We could do an entire
Star Wars ass.
I mean, the sequence of people, the blind man walking around losing his dog, and it's just. It's insane.
Yeah, what is this weird ass Rube Goldberg disaster? Just everything's just being as terrible as possible because something else bad just happened. Like, hey, we got a blind man in the show. Like, is Superman gonna solve all of these things at once? That's probably what's gonna happen. But damn. But as they're doing it, they got the Star Wars scroll for the credits just going over the case, like as it's introducing people, which just kind of distracts a little bit. But it was
and it's very weird because it's fading in at about here, and then it's fading out at about here. So you only have like this little bitty strip where it's actually where the text is fully rendered, and everything above it and below it is already fading out into nothingness. That's
why I was like, it's not even like the Star Wars font. It's like a weird variation. We want that effect, but not really, because we're
it's very odd. I mean, there's so many things going on with this movie. I mean, first of all, Christopher Reeves and Margot Kidder, the stars of the first two films, Superman and Lois Lane, they both wanted to not do this movie because Richard Donner was fired in the second film. And they made some protests and they made some public statements to the point where Margot Kidder's role as Lois Lane was reduced to 12 lines of screen time and 3 minutes in total.
Yeah, I noticed that almost immediately. She's like, I'm going on vacation for the movie. I'm like, damn, I guess she had a pay dispute or something. But no, you just explained it.
Yeah, and then there's also a point in pre-production where the producers see the likes of Kurt Russell and John Travolta and a few other folks, while finally settling on Tony Danza to take over the role as Superman. And at this point, it's Hollywood legend. There are basically two versions of the story. Christopher Reeves was intimidated and thought that they were never going to call his bluff, and that they were just not going to make Superman 3 if he wasn't participating. And when he found out that they were going to do that they were just going to do it with Tony Danza, he finally relinquished and said that he would be a part of it. The other version of the story is that they hired Tony Danza, and then while they were still trying to work out negotiations with Christopher Reeves, and the negotiations led to Christopher Reeves getting some input into the script and some input into his own character, and probably an increase in money.
Okay.
So the end of that is all just kind of like Hollywood legend and rumor. But we do know that we know that Lois Lane was severely reduced in this film. And then we do know for a fact that they were out hunting for new Superman, and that John Travolta, Kurt Russell, and a number of other folks were actually offered the part and turned it down.
I could see Kurt Russell. I don't think I could see Tony Danza. But maybe. He was the boss back then, I think. John Travolta, I can't help but laugh picturing John Travolta as Superman. I'm not saying he wouldn't do a good job as an actor. He probably could. But it's John Travolta as Superman. That's all I gotta say. That's funny, though. But yeah, like eventually Superman does save the day, like do that. And there's a guy that's like, "Way to go, Superman!" Just randomly cut in there, and it reminded me of that Spider-Man guy from Spider-Man Homecoming. I was just like, right. Spider-Man! And then when Iron Man shows up, Iron Man! That's what I thought about with the just the cut to the "Way to go, Superman!"
Yep.
Well, yeah.
So at what point are you prepared for this to be a terrible movie? Because I'm not going to mince my feelings on it. This isn't a Greatest Showman or a Molly's Game where I try and hide it till the third act of our show. I mean, there's no hiding it here. This film is all over the fucking place, and it's a mess.
If not one of Richard Pryor's early scenes, because I'm confused, because like you said, it's a mess, just the way the movie's going.
Yeah.
Then it's definitely when he froze the top of the lake, to lift it and drop it on a building and it turns to rain and stuff, which is the first of my standout moments. Although, I will say, apparently Superman 3 inspired Swordfish and Office Space, as far as I can tell, with the whole take fractions of money and put it in a bank account thing.
Well, Office Space specifically references it.
Okay.
The dialogue of the characters in that apartment as they're figuring it out, one of them goes, "Wait a minute, this is just Superman 3." and it's like, that doesn't mean it's a bad idea. But so originally this script was written to introduce the classic Superman villain Brainiac.
Okay.
And then Richard Pryor was hired. So I think it's safe to assume that the structure of the plot basically stayed the same, and Richard Pryor is playing some version of Brainiac in this film.
Between him and the computers themselves. Because it is all about a supercomputer.
If not the creator of the Android version. Because like the original Brainiac was a humanoid person from a different planet. And then the Brainiac that probably most people think of from like the Superman Adventures was an android. So yeah, it could be, you could look at it as like the creator of Brainiac or him and the computer. It's all Brainiac kind of thing. But yeah, this is so we open with him being unemployed for a consecutive 36 weeks and his employment coverage being cut off. And talk about a timestamp, the amount of people smoking inside of a government building. But he needs a light, and he gets handed a book of matches that says make big money with computers.
The fact that being a computer programmer is how you make money is, as a colloquial thought, the fact that that's been a case since like 81, like since before we were born, that's always been everybody's whole, oh, you want to make money, just be a computer programmer.
I hear computers are a big new thing.
That's crazy. But yes.
Yeah, so he takes a computer class and is just immediately a computer savant. And from there we go, he's being abused by his own, or he's not being abused, he's being used by his owner, but by the owner of the company that he works for. And so from that point forward, we just get into the misadventures of whatever this dude commands Richard Pryor to do with his computer brain.
Yeah. Go do a weather machine to destroy Colombia so that I can sell coffee beans and be the only person selling coffee in the world. Okay, oh, Superman.
Right. I mean, that's probably a standout moment. Is Richard is instead of us seeing Superman save Colombia, the film makes the choice to have Richard Pryor reenact seeing Superman save Colombia.
And then he came flying through and his cape was blowing. You know, his cape was blowing and he just, you should have seen him. It was Superman.
Which, I mean, a lot of this film feels like they just kind of let Richard do whatever he wanted. Like, he's like, it's like, all right, Richard, so you're here. You know, you're we got you dressed in this army general outfit. You just gotta you gotta get to the point where you're handing Superman the rock. That's we gotta get to that moment. Okay.
The fucking army thing.
Yeah, it's just that's one of those moments where I feel like they just rolled a camera and Richard Pryor just went up there and like just did a bit for 3 minutes and then handed Superman a rock.
I'm pretty sure that is when I was like, okay, what are we doing in this movie? Like at that point, it was
yeah, guys. So come in close. I can't get my mic very much closer. If you have not seen this movie, Superman fucks.
Does.
Superman fucks in Superman 3.
That he does. That girl's voice, hilarious. It's
the weird bit about her being secretly smart that never pays off.
I just like, so I do so. Oh, Ditsy. And then, like, near the end, it seems at first like when they're dealing with the supercomputer, because lady's like talking like, haha, I know computers. I've been studying for this. We don't need Richard Pryor. And then she tries to tell Lorelai something's like, oh, you mean press this button and do this? How did you know that? And then never touches the computer again for the rest of the movie or does anything smart for the rest of the movie. It's what was the point of her being secretly smart?
No, there was none. There was none. There was zero payoff to it.
Also, where the fuck does Superman put his Clark clothes? He seems to just like he left them in the fucking photo booth.
There's no rules.
With the
There's
girl,
no
with
rules.
the woman and the kid about to go in there. You don't think they go, wait a minute. Here's an ID. It's Superman.
There are zero rules. He has the photo booth moment. He has at one point he crawls into the back seat of a cop car with a cop sitting in the driver's seat
that's what
and
I wrote
changes
down
into
note.
Superman.
That's what I wrote down the note. Okay, where is he putting these clothes? The guy couldn't just turn around and because the cop's in there.
And then there's another moment when he's about ready to save Lana Lane's son, where his Clark clothes literally just dematerialize into his Superman outfit. And then when he needs to get his Clark clothes back on, they're just back on. I don't know if that's saying that he removed them at superhuman speed, that we didn't, that it just kind of looked like they just faded away magically.
I've done it because I mean he is like running real fast at the time. Oh my god, that movie. Speaking of Lana, there's a whole lot of little side shit with her and her kid. Because
right. So I mean, to be specific, real quick, to be specific about it, like the army scene, they've tried to make Kryptonite, but 0.25% of the material is an unknown substance. And so Richard Pryor is smoking his cigarettes and decides that he's just going to guess that the last element is tar. He makes Kryptonite, a version of Kryptonite, but it doesn't hurt Superman. It makes him an asshole that's horny. It makes him a horny asshole. Because I was telling my wife before the movie started, I was like, there's this thing that like it splits Superman into like evil Superman and good Superman. And then once it starts going, she's like, wait, so he's not really like evil. He's just a dick. He's like, yeah, I guess, yeah. It just makes him into kind of a dick.
Yeah, like the Leaning Tower of Pisa thing.
But let me tell you, man, Dark Superman is handsome. He's more handsome than plain Superman.
Like,
yeah, he's got a tan. He's got the 5 o'clock shadow. His colors aren't so bright. They're a little muted. It makes him a little cooler looking. I'm kind of digging Dark Superman as an adult.
And would you say like he might have had more input with one of those Hollywood story endings being like he had more input on what the character could do and stuff? I'm like, I can see him being like, I want people to take me more seriously as an actor. I'm gonna have Superman go evil this movie. We'll save Brainiac for later, but I want to show my more darker side. So that also, I want to show my sexy side for the ladies. I'm fucking in this movie.
The way he grabs her head right before we fade out of that scene, it's like, I'm shaking my camera and I apologize. I don't want to be vulgar on this episode. Like, Superman wants to do some inappropriate shit, and he's also too strong to be doing that to women. Yeah. But he's a dick. Oh man, yeah, this movie's crazy. This movie is much crazy.
Shit. Fucking. Speaking of we're just jumping around with
right.
Shit.
No, yeah.
Fucking.
We've kind of been semi-chronological at this point, accidentally, okay. Kind of.
Fair enough. But Richard Pryor, speaking of him like messing up with all the stuff, one of those scenes they're like planning on what to do next with Superman, and Richard Pryor's kind of not cool with it, and he's trying to say something about it. Well, I just want to say one thing. I can't ski, and he just skis off a building,
off of a skyscraper, and lands on his feet. He lands on his feet, ski diving off of a skyscraper. Why does that even exist anyway?
The slope on top. And the guy had his own ski slope on top of the roof of a skyscraper in his penthouse. That's just asking for that to happen. Also,
Ridiculous.
Superman sneezing to help the kid look like he was cool with bowling and just breaking all the fucking pins.
What's going on there, Superman? Like, everyone in that bowling alley should be like, so fucking Clark Kent is Superman? Holy shit, guys, Clark Kent is Superman. He just sneezed and blew up all the pins. You know what? Now that I think about it, he looks exactly like fucking Superman. No, he can't be Superman. Did you see him stumble over that ashtray?
I mean, look at him. He's got glasses. But he sneezed and the bowling pins exploded. Who else would do that? Superman was seen in Smallville earlier today.
Like, the actress playing Lana Lane, her delivery of God Bless You, her delivery of that was like, you're fucking Superman.
Yeah, I did feel like Lana in this movie did pick up on Clark and Superman being the same person. I definitely feel like she picked up on that throughout this movie. And with certain
but you kind of want a moment of him actually just saying it, though.
Also true.
Like, you kind of want...
I was
like
expecting that the whole time.
That proposal moment at the end is so fucking weird.
Yeah, I was
expecting... It's the weirdest thing ever.
I was expecting him to be like, he's not here because I... Superman. Or when he's like, would you accept me? Yes. Good. Because I am Superman. Like, reveal yourself.
So once Superman has boned the villain's main side piece, he gets so drunk that he splits himself in two.
Oh my god.
And this is the scene that I was referring to in the opening. It was so powerful to me when I was a child.
For good reason.
It was so powerful to me. It was so huge. It was epic. It was the biggest thing in the world. When Clark Kent opens his button up and reveals the fresh, clean Superman suit, I would weep.
Dude.
Like, it was everything to me.
And I get it.
It's so bad. Like, watching it as an adult.
But dude, no, I'm not even saying it's bad. It's fucking batshit at the very least. But the idea, I like the scene. I'm just talking to see it as a whole. Just the idea that you just have Superman on this fucking Fight Club shit, fighting himself, beating himself up in a junkyard, and he's just in his head brutally murdering Clark Kent repeatedly with all kinds of random junkyard equipment, just brutally murdering him as much as he can, only for Clark to get out, beat his ass, strangle him until he stops existing.
Wrangled him to death.
Also, he came to this junkyard as Superman, in his Superman garb, and then just raged until Clark Kent in normal Clark Kent clothes was fighting him. Eventually, Clark Kent in Clark Kent clothes strangles Superman. Superman disappears, leaving normal Clark Kent standing there in his Clark Kent clothes as the real deal, who then opens his shirt and he's Superman. And it's like...
Yeah.
That was one of those literal, LOL, just I had to like stop for a second and laugh like, okay. So the scene is great in my opinion, for better or worse.
I mean, to their credit, I would say for 1983, the first thing I'm thinking of to credit it is the Christopher Reeves fighting Christopher Reeves is done pretty well. I don't feel like I remember a single moment of like, oh, well, that's obvious. Well, there's the stunt man. Like, you get those moments even in a movie from today.
Yeah.
You can, there would be a moment where you're like, okay, stunt man. Yep. Kind of thing, or weird CG. Nowadays, it's like, oh, weird CG face on top of a stunt man. But this, I feel like this is done pretty well, especially for considering it's 1983. It's just kind of like, I don't know. In my head, in my memory, it was just so epic. and really it's just them walking around a dumpster and the dark Superman like whipping him with aluminum foil. And then Clark Kent falling into a new contraption.
Yeah, but he just keeps like trying to murder the man as much as he can, and it's just he was just the sequence of all right. So he arrived in a Superman garb, but when he beat himself, he was in his Clark Kent garb, who then opened his shirt and just went back to being Superman anyway. But he's good guy Superman now, and
one could make the argument it's not the same Superman anymore.
Maybe that's a very valid argument, because we saw it happen.
Who are we watching right now? Because we watched Superman die.
Clark killed him. Maybe that's why when he showed up at the apartment later, he's like, Superman couldn't make it tonight, but would you accept me in his stead? Because I killed that motherfucker.
Because he's dead.
He died in the Grand Canyon. But yeah, so that moment's ridiculous. And the kid right before, you're just in a slump, with the fucking poorly dubbed lines like over the you're just in a slump, Superman. He had
I still believe in you.
That kid had a couple lines in this movie where it clearly they had to go back and voice over them.
Oh yeah. It was like take 49, and they were like, "We're not gonna get it. Shoot from behind his head, so we don't see his lips moving."
We'll just get the audio later.
Yeah,
and it's so noticeably different.
Would you believe me if I told you they were afraid that the video game sequence would be too lifelike and that people wouldn't understand?
What? Too lifelike?
I swear. Yeah, they were concerned that it was a little too realistic looking, and they almost like reduced it down to like a further reduced version.
Fucking that shit. The fucking video game. There's what?
Yeah, the big climax of the movie is our main villain, the boss of Richard Pryor, playing a video game trying to shoot Superman down with rockets.
And missing, and then the girls making fun of him in classic, movie, like, we're trying to act like we know the video game, like trash talk shit, like, you loser, you're doing so-and-so, that's not tubular, dude. But but that scene ridiculous. Then he comes in and it's like the super duper computer that Gorman, or Gus Gorman, Richard Pryor's character, had designed, but he needed the rich boss to actually make. This thing can automatically guess something's weakness and counter that thing. And so it came up with a kryptonite beam on its own. It's like, oh, I see him. I know the exact formula for kryptonite. Super kryptonite beam. And this leads...
Which is paused by the removal of a single screw. The supercomputer's great weakness, a screw driver.
But at least it was only briefly.
Yeah, it was briefly, because it's one of those where it's becoming sentient. It wants to live.
And so it takes the power from the entire country so it can keep shooting this kryptonite beam at Superman.
Yep.
Who's like now got the power of the electric. He pretty much got the power of America shooting him, and he's gonna end up being just fine, people. Because he's Superman. What's wrong with you? Don't you know how that story ends? And he just gets up, and I think eventually Richard Pryor breaks the kryptonite beam fire, and evil sister of the boss dude comes down and melds with the machine or some shit and becomes a computer lady. Eventually, she gets her ass whooped because Superman.
Well, I mean, the big hero, the big savior of the day turns out to be ketchup. It's actually that acid that we learned about from the first scene where Superman made it rain.
Yeah. It was.
But
This acid, if it gets hot enough, will melt through whatever. It'll be terrible.
It just looks like they just straight up splattered ketchup on the computer, and then they were like, "There, it's dead."
Like the acid turned red. Oh, it melted through the floor. Ah, damn, we did it! Yay!
Other highlights of Superman being a dick that we didn't mention: him straightening the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
That's what I
and then
later
re-leading it. Him also, in order to get laid earlier, as we discussed, in order to do that, he had to cause a gigantic oil spill in the Atlantic Ocean by ripping a hole in the side of a ship. But he eventually somehow is able to, like, he uses his breath power to blow the oil back into the ship, and then his super strength to fold the metal back up, and then his laser eyes
to weld the
seam shut, all while not lighting that oil on fire.
He's Superman.
Somehow. He's Superman.
He's Superman. That's just what it is.
And people go so hard on the Brandon Routh Superman and the Henry Cavill Superman. Like, motherfuckers, these movies have always been stupid. Like, they have always been stupid.
Is Brandon Routh Returns?
Yeah.
Where he lifts an island made out of kryptonite. For all you people who are like, Superman's weakness is this, that, and like, I don't think you understand. Superman's weakness is that he has no weakness. He wants you to think he's weak to kryptonite, so you use it and he beats you anyway. It's like more demoralizing when you use his weakness. Oh, he's weak to magic? Sure he is. And then he'll punch you into smithereens because he's Superman. He'll always have that moment where he reminds you, bitch, I'm Superman. That's the name of the story. That means I win.
At most, I punch you so much I pass out, and then I'll wake up a few panels later.
The death of Superman was really just the vacation of Superman.
Right.
Oh,
it's just so we could have Superman Reborn.
That reminds me,
Lightning Superman. Oh my God, I told you about wrestling. I was obsessed.
Yeah, I got a video to tell you about after we do this.
Okay.
But yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of things. Oh, just a small one. You mentioned the proposal earlier. When he saves Gus from the exploding cave, he drops him off at a mining place.
Because Gus is a good guy now. Yeah. We're all cool. We're cool with all the atrocities that Gus completely participated in willingly.
Yeah, we're supposed to sympathize with Gus because he was used by his boss, but let's not forget the only reason his boss started using him specifically is because he tried to rob the company he works for of like $85,000.
Yeah, and then immediately came to work the next day in a Ferrari that he didn't even park in a parking spot. That pissed me off so much. He just parked randomly in the middle of the street.
They're like, this guy's gonna lay low so he can keep doing this in his company, unless he's a complete idiot.
You, Richard Pryor, coming in.
You do. Yeah. The second they say something like that, it's like he's definitely gonna do it now.
His final scene is funny though. Him reacting to being flown and how he is not comfortable with it at all. And then when Superman drops him off and he's like, "All right, time to go, Gus." And Gus is like, "Nah, no, thank you. I think I'm gonna just catch the bus or something." And Superman looks around. And he's like, "You guys got computers here?" "Yeah, we got a computer." "You should hire my man Gus here." And then Richard Pryor looks around. He's like, "Nah, I'm good. I don't want to work here. I don't want to work here with all you filthy fucking people.
I'm
I
going
thought
home.
I thought that scene was really funny.
But yeah, Superman taking the coal, crushing it into the big ass diamond in his hand. And then, like, he makes a ring that is smaller than the big ass diamond, at least to me.
You
But
gotta get it
still
cut.
massive. But I'm saying, but still massive. It's like, what happened to the rest of that fucking diamond, Superman? Also, you can just do this?
You should be spending your free time doing this and just giving them to people.
Just.
Yeah, like you should watch, like put on an episode of Parks and Rec and a bag of coal, and it's just like diamond, diamond, diamond.
Oh my god. But yeah, that
So,
is.
I mean, I think based on your past history of selections, I think we know who you would play.
Yeah. Yeah, Richard Pryor. Now, Richard Pryor. Like,
I mean,
don't
he's the
wanna
most
say-
he's the most fun role to play.
He is. He's the most fun to play. The villain had his funny moments or deliveries and things, but I think that's more because of the actor that they chose to play him. He looked familiar. I don't remember his name though.
Yeah.
So that would kind of be fun. I'm not tall enough or Superman enough to be Superman, but if they like
Shout out to Robert Vaughn. Robert Vaughn.
All right. Yeah, he looks like he did a lot of 80s shit, or maybe he only did Superman 3. Either way.
Yeah, he did a bunch of 80s shit, 90s shit. He's been in a ton of stuff.
Okay. Yeah, he looked familiar. Yeah, so that would also be fun if not the Richard Pryor role. But
Yeah, I would probably go for Mr. Webster, the main villain, or
Brad.
Brad would be fun. Brad would be fun. Playing drugs hard. Playing drugs hard.
Also true. That's why you method acted. Just drink on the set.
That's dangerous.
Just make sure. Well, at least tipsify yourself. That way, you just have to.
Still
add
dangerous.
You just have to add a little. You know, you're on the edge, and then you're just like, all right. So if I I got that extra momentum from it, just a natural flow.
So, well, what do you think? What do you think to round out our discussion here? What are your final thoughts?
So, I think you stated earlier, this is not a good movie.
I think I did.
It's a little bit of all over the place. Richard Pryor, though I love him, I feel like he could have put some. I don't think this was one of his best roles, to me at least. Or at the very least, he could have tried a little harder in some of the scenes. That's just me saying that. Obviously, still a legend. I can't hold a candle. Whatever. You get the freaking point of talking about this movie. But overall, it was funny. I would definitely watch this again for no other reason than to laugh at certain scenes, or maybe not watch the whole movie because, yeah. But watch shit like the Superman versus Superman. That shit was hilarious to me. And if you're making me laugh like that, I'm not gonna be able to like look at the movie in a disfavorable fashion. I can admit something's bad while admitting like, but I had fun watching it, and I think that's how this was. It was bad, but I had fun watching it. I can totally see why this would be nostalgic and memorable to you. Because I'm also keeping shit like that in mind when I watch these things. Like, oh, put yourself a little bit back in the past, you know. Don't watch everything with, well, this is modern day standards of, you know, HD 720p, you know, whatever. You can clearly see he's flying against a green screen. This Graphics are terrible.
Yeah, you can a lot.
What
Yeah.
is this? 60 frames a second? It needs to be at least 320. No, I don't give a fuck about that. I understand this is a movie from 81, and so I looked at it as such, and it was fun. It was fun. It was a fun watch of a bad movie. I can see also why people don't talk about it a lot, though.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
can
Most
see
of the time
how I
when you're
missed
talking
it.
about a Christopher Reeve Superman, the person is talking about number one and number two.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this movie is as a kid, I've already expressed how much it meant to me as a child. Viewing it as an adult immediately was like, oh wow, this is not good. And Superman 1 is clearly the best. But it's, as an adult watching it, it is hilarious on how bad it is and how ridiculous it is and where it goes and what they choose to do and how Superman power set fluctuates from moment to moment and what he can do. And it's a ridiculous watch, and it's one of those that would go in our catalog as like, get a couple of friends together and have some beers and put this on.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a really fun time.
I'll give you that. That's a great way to put that whole little synopsis.
Other than that, it's a terrible, terrible, terrible movie.
Also agreed.
Now, for next week, you're not recommending anything, and I'm not recommending anything.
No, nor do we have someone coming on the show.
Usually when we're doing this, we're teasing a special guest, but that's not the case. Because we actually got a suggestion from the community this time, right?
Correct. I had a suggestion from Avish Kumar. I apologize if I mispronounced that. Avish Kumar.
On the RRR video.
That's right. On the RRR video, Avish suggested that we watch the director's previous film, which I believe was called Bahubali. Which
that's a 2-film series, and so we're just going to go ahead and assume that we're supposed to watch the first one in that series, Bahubali: The Beginning,
from 2015.
Directed by S.S. Rajamouli, the same guy who did RRR, which both of us loved. So I'm super pumped for this one.
Likewise, I'm looking forward to it. But and with this being one where neither of us has seen it, we're both seeing it for the first time.
Yeah, so that's a whole new episode for this show.
Right? With no one who's seen it like on the show. So that'd be cool. Well, that was a cool suggestion we had from the comments, and we're gonna go ahead and watch it because, like you said, we want to continue with our education on Tollywood. So far, Tollywood's fantastic. But yes, if you want to see more of us, obviously we have more videos on this channel. We're like over 40. We've been doing this for a minute. We're coming up on a year soonish, in a few months or so, it seems. We've been doing this for a minute and we've been enjoying it. I am also found elsewhere on YouTube on the Whatever We Want podcast with new episodes every week.
100 episodes. 100.
100 episodes are out, and episode 101 hits tomorrow. I'll probably already hit. I don't know.
Yeah, you're on 102 at this point.
There. Yeah, I think 102. Yeah, thank you. It'll be 102 coming out tomorrow. And yeah, it's fun. I do it with a good friend of mine and a friend of this show, Super Jazz.
Bitches.
It's even funnier that
you might have seen me.
It's even
everyone
funnier.
should go check out the 100th episode. It's a really great episode. Specifically, you should watch probably like about 20 minutes into it, all the way to about like 55 minutes into it. I feel like that's where they really peaked. And you should definitely go check out their episode.
I think it's
They
even
could use the
funnier
views.
that that when you said what you said, the super or the stupid in this case got muted out by Zoom. So it was just jizz.
Stupid jizz. My joking way of loving super jazz.
But yes,
from afar.
Yeah, Super Jazz, another one of my best friends, an actor. Go out and check out his album, My Secret Identity. You may have to look it up under Super Jazz, My Secret Identity, because he's not that famous yet. I also have a Twitter and Twitch. That's Giotavi. That is Giotavi. Come on in. Stop on by. Bill, you got anything you want to say to the folks out there?
No.
All right. Well, folks, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next week. Adiosness.